Imagine this. You wake up in the dead of night, your room dimly lit by the soft glow of your phone screen. The world outside is silent, but inside, there is a war. A battle between desire and guilt, between fleeting pleasure and the hollow emptiness that follows. You tell yourself, just this once. You make a promise you've made 100 times before. And then it happens. A few taps, a few swipes, and the floodgates open. Your heart quickens, your breath shallows, and for a moment, just a moment, the weight of the world disappears. The hunger is satisfied. But as soon as the screen goes dark, as soon as the moment fades, something sinister remains. An unease, a quiet shame, a whisper in the soul that something isn't right. You tell yourself that it's harmless, that it's normal. Everyone does it. It's just a part of modern life. But deep down, something gnaws at the edges of your mind. Because no matter how many times you indulge, the satisfaction is never lasting. The hunger always returns. And each time, it grows stronger. Why? Why does something so easily accessible, so socially accepted, leave behind such an aftertaste of regret? Why do countless men and women feel imprisoned by their own desires, desperate to stop, yet unable to? The Bible speaks of a man named David, king, warrior, poet of Israel, a man after God's own heart. Yet even he was not immune to the pull of lust. One evening, as he stood on the roof of his palace, his eyes fell upon a woman bathing in the distance. Her beauty ignited a fire in his soul. And in that moment, David, the chosen king, the slayer of giants, became a slave to his own longing. Lust whispers that it will satisfy, but it only enslaves. Centuries later, Jesus would stand before the crowds and utter words that shattered the illusion. Whoever looks at a woman with lust has already committed adultery with her in his heart. Matthew 5 verse 28, he wasn't condemning desire itself. Desire is part of being human. He was exposing a hidden reality, that unchecked lust rewires the heart, distorts perception, and leads down a path far darker than it first appears. But here's the paradox. We live in an age of unlimited pleasure, where anything you crave is a click away, a screen away. The modern world has achieved what the ancient empires could only dream of: pleasure without consequence, indulgence without limit. And yet, depression is higher than ever. Anxiety grips entire generations. Relationships crumble under invisible pressures. People feel more disconnected, more restless, more empty. Could it be, just possibly, that what promises satisfaction is, in reality, draining the very soul it claims to fulfill? Could it be that pornography is not just a harmless habit, but a hidden chain, wrapping itself tighter and tighter around the heart, the mind, the spirit? And if that is true, what does it mean for you? The answer lies deeper than you think. This is where the illusion shatters. This is where the truth begins. You were never supposed to be this way. Think about it. Before the internet, before screens, before this flood of endless images, how did men and women experience desire? Attraction was once tied to reality, to interaction, to the natural rhythms of human connection. A glance across a crowded room, the sound of a voice, the slow unfolding of love. But something changed. The world discovered a way to bypass all of that. A way to extract pleasure without intimacy, desire without commitment, stimulation without relationship. And now, a force that once had purpose, meant to draw a man and a woman into a sacred bond, has been hijacked, rewired, corrupted. Pornography doesn't just affect what you see. It reshapes how you think. Carl Jung, the great psychologist, once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." And that is exactly what has happened. Pornography burrows deep into the unconscious mind. It creates patterns, scripts, expectations. The more you consume it, the more it consumes you. You don't just watch it, you internalize it. You become trained by it, shaped by it, owned by it. And soon, it becomes impossible to see the world the same way. Women are no longer women. They are objects. Men are no longer men. They are consumers. Relationships are no longer about love. They are transactions of pleasure. Jesus understood this far before any psychologist ever did. The eye is the lamp of the body. If your eyes are healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eyes are unhealthy, your whole body will be full of darkness. Matthew 6 verses 22 to 23, What you consume is what you become. But why? Why does pornography hold such power? Why does it feel so impossible to escape? Because it was designed that way. In the 1930s, Aldous Huxley predicted a world where people wouldn't be controlled by force, but by pleasure. A world where they wouldn't rebel because they would be too entertained to care. And he was right. Modern neuroscience confirms what ancient wisdom has always known. The brain is not a machine. It is a moldable, rewritable entity. What you feed it, it craves. What you normalize, it demands. Pornography is not just a habit. It is an addiction by design. It operates on the same neurological pathways as hard drugs. Each time you engage, dopamine floods the brain, lighting up pleasure centers. But like any drug, the more you consume, the less effect it has. The same images no longer satisfy. You seek more. You seek different. You seek extremes. And without realizing it, you cross a threshold. What once was innocent curiosity has become a prison. What once seemed harmless has rewritten your desires. And suddenly, real life doesn't compare. The face of your spouse, the warmth of a real embrace, the simplicity of love, all of it feels dull in comparison to the hyperstimulation of a screen. Pornography is not a mirror of reality. It is an illusion. But illusions come at a cost. King Solomon, a man who had everything, power, wealth, women beyond count, wrote these haunting words, "I denied myself nothing my eyes desired. I refused my heart no pleasure. Yet when I surveyed all that my hands had done and what I had toiled to achieve, everything was meaningless, a chasing after the wind." Ecclesiastes 2 verses 10 to 11. He had it all, and he found it empty. And this is the horror of addiction. It does not end in fulfillment. It ends in exhaustion. This is the hidden cost of pornography. It doesn't just steal your time. It steals your ability to love. And the deeper you go, the harder it is to return. But the worst part? You don't even realize it's happening. Like a frog in boiling water, you sit comfortably as the temperature rises, unaware that you are being cooked alive. And unless you wake up, unless you step back and see it for what it truly is, you will never be free. But if you dare to look deeper, if you dare to face the truth, you might just find the way out. At first, it seems harmless. A brief escape, a moment of pleasure. But nothing in this world is free. Every action plants a seed, and every seed grows into something, whether you see it or not. The real danger of pornography is not in what it gives you, but in what it takes away. It steals your time, but you don't notice. It numbs your emotions, but you don't feel it. It rewires your mind, but you don't see it happening. And then, one day, you wake up, and something is missing. A fog covers your life. You don't laugh like you used to. Your relationships feel hollow. Your motivation is gone. The things that once excited you now seem dull. What happened to you? The soul's erosion. There is a reason ancient wisdom warns against giving in to lust. Jesus said, "Everyone who looks at a woman with lustful intent has already committed adultery with her in his heart." Matthew 5 verse 28. Why such a strong statement? Because lust is not just a private indulgence. It is a spiritual erosion. Each time you engage in pornography, you are trading something away. You are trading reality for fantasy. You are trading true intimacy for momentary pleasure. You are trading control for addiction. And every trade leaves you with less. King David learned this the hard way. He was a man after God's own heart, a warrior, a king, a leader of nations. But one night, he saw Bathsheba bathing, and he did not look away. One glance turned into desire. Desire turned into action. Action turned into destruction. He took another man's wife. Then, to cover his sin, he arranged for her husband to be killed. Lust took everything from him, his honor, his peace, his family. And it started with a single look. What if the same thing is happening to you? The cost you can't see. Pornography doesn't just change how you see women. It changes how you see yourself. You become a man who hides. You learn to live in secrecy, to close the door, to delete the history, to pretend it never happened. But deep down, you know you are not who you were meant to be. And that knowledge eats away at you. It weakens your confidence. It makes you hesitant in relationships. It fills you with guilt, shame, and self-doubt. You start to feel like a fraud. You walk into a room, and instead of standing tall, you shrink. You meet a woman's eyes, and instead of connection, you feel unworthy. You try to pursue greatness, but something inside you whispers, "You are weak." And that voice, it is not a lie. It is the consequence of 1,000 unseen choices. Because every time you surrender to lust, you surrender a piece of yourself. And the more you surrender, the harder it is to fight back. The death of true desire. Pornography does something even worse than addiction. It kills your ability to love. Real intimacy requires patience. It requires sacrifice. It requires courage. But pornography teaches you the opposite. It teaches you to take without giving, to consume without effort, to seek pleasure without responsibility. And the worst part? You start to believe this is what love is. You see, your brain is a storyteller. It learns from what you feed it. The more you watch pornography, the more your brain rewrites reality to match it. You begin to expect perfection. You begin to crave the extremes. You begin to lose interest in anything that does not give instant gratification. And slowly, love becomes impossible. Real women frustrate you. Real relationships bore you. Real commitment feels like a burden. Because you have trained your brain to reject reality. And one day, you look at the person you're supposed to love, and you feel nothing. The silent enemy. Pornography is not just an addiction. It is a war. A war for your mind. A war for your soul. A war for your future. And the enemy does not fight with swords or guns. He fights with whispers. It's not a big deal. Everyone does it. You can quit whenever you want. But deep down, you know the truth. You feel the chains. You feel the weakness. You feel the emptiness. And the question is, will you do something about it? Or will you keep trading pieces of your soul until there is nothing left? Because here's the truth. You were not made for this. You were made for more. And if you dare to fight back, if you dare to break free, you might just discover a life you never thought possible. But freedom is not easy. It requires rebellion. And only the brave will take the next step. The war begins in the mind. Imagine standing at the edge of a battlefield, but the enemy is not outside. It's inside. The war is not fought with swords or guns. It is fought in your mind, in your heart, in the deepest places of your soul. And make no mistake, this is a war. You are not just fighting a habit. You are not just fighting temptation. You are fighting for your identity. For years, you have been programmed to believe a lie, that you are powerless, that you are weak, that this is just part of who you are. But that is the greatest deception. You were never meant to live in chains. You were made to be free. The first step, exposing the lie. The enemy wants you to believe that pornography is just a habit, just a coping mechanism, just a guilty pleasure. But Jesus said, "You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." John 8 verse 32. So what is the truth? Pornography is a counterfeit. It is a twisted version of something real. It offers pleasure without intimacy. It offers connection without love. It offers escape without growth. And because it is a counterfeit, it never truly satisfies. Have you ever noticed that no matter how much you consume, it is never enough? Because the hunger you are trying to satisfy was never physical, it was spiritual. You are not just craving pleasure. You are craving love. You are craving purpose. You are craving meaning. And no amount of pornography will ever give you what your soul is searching for. The second step, starving the addiction. Every addiction follows the same pattern. Trigger, something makes you feel stressed, lonely, bored, or empty. Response, you turn to pornography as a way to escape. Reward, your brain releases dopamine, reinforcing the cycle. The key to breaking free is simple. You must disrupt the pattern. Jesus said, "If your right eye causes you to sin, tear it out and throw it away." Matthew 5 verse 29. He was not telling you to harm yourself. He was telling you to cut off anything that leads you into temptation. What does that mean for you? Delete the apps. Block the websites. Set screen limits. Remove every easy access point. Because as long as the door is open, the enemy will keep walking in. And when the triggers come, because they will, you need a new response. Instead of escaping into lust, escape into action. When you feel stressed, pray. When you feel lonely, call a friend. When you feel restless, go outside and move. Do not feed the addiction. Starve it until it dies. The third step, rewiring your brain. Right now, your brain is wired for lust. Years of pornography have created deep neurological pathways, like highways in your mind, making lust the automatic response. But here's the good news. Your brain is not fixed. It can change. This is called neuroplasticity, the ability of your brain to rewire itself. But rewiring takes time. Each time you resist temptation, you weaken the old pathways. Each time you choose purity, you strengthen new ones. And over time, the desire fades. The chains loosen. The fog lifts. You begin to see clearly again. You begin to feel deeply again. You begin to live again. The fourth step, replacing lust with purpose. Breaking free is not just about saying no to pornography. It is about saying yes to something greater. Think about every great man in history. Moses, David, Paul, Jesus. None of them wasted their energy on empty pleasure. They were too busy changing the world. And that is the real secret. Lust loses its power when your life is filled with purpose. So what is your purpose? What were you made for? You were not made to sit in a dark room, numbing your soul with empty pleasure. You were made to create. You were made to lead. You were made to love. Find a mission so great that lust becomes an afterthought. Build something. Serve others. Train your body. Strengthen your mind. Pursue God with everything you have. Because when you are consumed with purpose, there is no room for addiction. The final step, fighting like a warrior. Freedom is not a one-time decision. It is a battle you fight every day. There will be moments of weakness. There will be days when you feel like giving up. But that is when you remember, you are not just a man trying to quit something. You are a warrior fighting for your soul. And warriors do not quit. Paul wrote, I discipline my body and keep it under control, lest after preaching to others I myself should be disqualified. 1 Corinthians 9 verse 27, discipline is not easy, but neither is slavery. The choice is yours. Will you live in chains? Or will you rise and fight? Because if you fight, truly fight, you will win. And what waits for you on the other side? A life of clarity, a life of strength, a life of purpose, a life you never thought possible. But the war is not over yet, because beyond the battle lies something even greater, a truth so powerful it will change everything. And that is what we will uncover next. The illusion of freedom. Imagine walking out of a dark cave. For years, you have been chained to the walls, staring at flickering shadows, believing them to be reality. But then, one day, the chains loosen. You stand up, you turn around, and for the first time, you see a doorway. Light pours in from the other side. Your heart races. This is the moment you've been waiting for. Freedom. But as you step outside, something unsettling happens. The light is blinding. The air is too fresh. The world is too real. And suddenly, you feel something strange, something unexpected. Fear. Because the darkness had become comfortable. The chains had become familiar. The prison had become home. And now, standing in the light, you are faced with the one thing you never truly prepared for. Yourself. The greatest deception. You always thought pornography was just about lust. But now you see the truth. It was never just about lust. It was about control. Someone wanted you distracted. Something wanted you numb. Something wanted you weak. Because as long as you were consumed by lust, you would never ask the bigger questions. Who am I? Why am I here? What does it mean to truly live? Pornography was never just about sex. It was a counterfeit for something deeper, something eternal. And the longer you chased the illusion, the further you drifted from reality, from God, from your own soul. The hollow man. Jesus once asked, what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and forfeit his soul? Mark 8 verse 36. But the real tragedy is not the man who sells his soul for riches. It is the man who trades it for nothing. A screen, a fantasy, a moment of pleasure that vanishes like smoke. And in the end, he is left with nothing. No vision, no fire, no purpose, just an empty heart and wasted years. The world tells you that freedom is doing whatever you desire. But that is a lie. Real freedom is not the ability to indulge in every craving. Real freedom is the power to say no to what enslaves you, and yes to what sets you free. The true battlefield, the final battle, is not against pornography. It is not against lust. It is against the false identity that sin has built around you. The enemy wants you to believe you are weak, that you are broken, that you will never change. But that is not who you are. You are not an addict. You are not a slave to your desires. You are not defined by your past mistakes. You are a son of God, a warrior, a man called to something greater than himself. And the moment you embrace that truth, the chains begin to shatter. Because the greatest prison was never pornography. The greatest prison was the lie that you were never meant to be free. The road to redemption, you might ask, But what if I fall again? Then get back up. For the righteous falls 7 times and rises again. Proverbs 24 verse 16. You were never meant to fight this battle alone. Jesus did not come to make bad men good. He came to make dead men alive. And that includes you. So let go of the shame. Let go of the guilt. Come home. Back to the Father. Back to your purpose. Back to the life you were created for. Because in the end, the ultimate truth is this. You were never just fighting against something. You were always fighting for something. For love. For meaning. For eternity. And now, standing in the light, you must make the final choice. Return to the shadows, or walk forward, into the life that was always waiting for you. The decision is yours. Say after me, Heavenly Father, I come before you with a humble heart, seeking your truth and freedom. I confess that I have struggled with lust, and I no longer want to be a slave to it. I believe that through Jesus Christ, I have been set free. I declare that lust does not define me. You do. Fill me with your presence, Lord. Let my heart hunger for you more than anything else. Help me to fix my eyes on Jesus, to abide in your love, and to walk in purity. I surrender my desires to you. Transform my mind, renew my heart, and lead me into the joy of true freedom. Thank you for your grace, your mercy, and your power in my life. I receive your strength today, in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thanks for tuning in to Sparktopus Think. The journey doesn't stop here. Join us next time as we keep exploring, one episode at a time. Don't conform to the patterns of this world. Instead, renew your mind and be transformed. Subscribing is simple. Hit that button so you never miss an episode. Drop a comment. We'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to like and spread the word with your friends and family. At Sparktopus Think, we're all about sparking meaningful conversations, challenging perspectives, and aligning with God's truth. Until next time, keep thinking, keep growing, and keep transforming.